the Top 25 Rundown. And here's your host, Alan West.
Good evening and welcome to the 25 Rundown. Today is October 19, 2022. My name is Alan West. I'm here with Tyler Turner and Chris Caravell. I'm sorry. How you guys doing tonight?
Good, man.
So, Tyler, first of all, before we start, I gotta admit, you almost got me this week because my overs, they didn't go as well as I was hoping. So, congratulations for that, sir. I bow down to you for that.
Well, I didn't win. What are you bowing down to me for? Are you bowing down to the guy that lost? That's weird.
I'm bowing down because the two games you got me on, I got to give you credit for those first.
Well,
before we get in.
Okay, you did the exact same thing that I did last week. It gets in your brain. You're like, oh, the cover and the outright, but then the unders and over. You like. So remember the week before, I was like, oh, I whooped your butt, Alan. And then you started going through, and you're like, wow, it kept on going over. I didn't whoop his butt. He won those. And then last week, you're like, kept on sending me messages, 13-3 or whatever you're saying. And I was like, no, I got the under. I got the over. So, yeah. So Chris, just so you know, we've been each and every week, we've been picking the over under, the cover, and the outright winner. And if you get all three, you get 3 points, 2, 1, whatever. The math is simple. Well, you'd think the math is simple, but we keep on thinking that we're doing better than we are. And those over-unders, they get you.
Somehow, through the whole college football season, I am still ahead, I want to say, by
47-40.
Yeah, okay. I was actually going to give you credit and say I was only 5 up. You know what? Hey, it's a long year.
It boils down to that first week. The first week you did pretty well, and I did terrible. I was 6 for 18. So after that, since then it's been about even, honestly.
It has.
I've won by a couple. You've won by one, but yeah.
So I got a question for Chris before we go into the over/under. What game did you think last week for them in Tennessee? What game did you consider the biggest upset or biggest blowout of the week?
That was funny.
Wow, you took away Alabama, Tennessee from me. I mean, that kind of dominated the headlines last week. The biggest one that stood out to me, call it an upset, I guess, was TCU coming back in the second half to beat Oklahoma State, remain unbeaten. That's a scary good team. They got a good test this week against Kansas State, but they're definitely getting to 6-0 at this point in the season. They're looking really good under Sonny Dykes. So I think that's one that jumped out at me. Unfortunately, Leary getting hurt for NC State kind of changed their game against Syracuse last week, and Syracuse is still unbeaten. So there's still some other games, around the country that stand out, but looking back at who was able to stay undefeated last weekend, TCU jumped out at me.
Yeah, I know you're a Florida State fan, so I know that hasn't been the best year for you, but in the beginning of that Clemson and Florida State game.
Hold on, I think he's a Washington fan.
Yeah, so I got my bachelor's degree from Florida State, and I ran track there, so that's the whole Knoll Corps thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I went to UW. That was obviously, I took the long way to get to Seattle for sure. But yeah, that's where my rooting interest has lied my whole life. But yeah, to your point, Alan, Mike Norvell kind of put this team behind the 8 ball, losing that game at NC State. That was a winnable game. Another stupid decision. They should have lost the LSU game, because he was running toss sweeps. I still think that he's got a lot of ways to go, as a game day coach. But Clemson, that was always going to be a tough mountain because the FSU defense is still a siege stopping the run.
Yeah, no, I mean that was why, Tyler. I think you and me were talking about that game a little bit when we were texting on Saturday, and even I was talking with mother, and she was like, "You need to start watching this game." So I did, and in the beginning it was close, but unfortunately, in the end, Clemson did pull away. But even still, in the beginning, that was a really good game. I mean, I
Right.
hope was going to make it, but unfortunately, Clemson just was able with the players they had. They wore down Florida State, and then at the end, well, it was what it was, sadly. So, Tyler, let's get into our over and unders and see how we did that, and then Chris, you can. I think I'm kind of curious to see some of the games we picked, just because the one game you mentioned about TCU and Oklahoma State, that was one of the games we did the over under and the outright winner for, and we did things a little differently. I think is the best way to put it, right, Tyler?
What do you mean?
For some of the games, how it worked out for what we picked.
So I'm sorry. I'm trying to get so what happened?
So,
what
like for TCU, let's do the TCU and Oklahoma State game first.
Okay, sure.
So, for that game, you picked TCU in the under, if I recall, right?
No, I picked the over. I picked TCU the over to cover,
Okay.
and Oklahoma State and TCU won. They did not cover, but it was the over. So you picked Oklahoma State,
Mm-hmm.
and
I
you
picked the over and the cover.
the over. So you got how many points? You got one. You got 1 point in that game.
1 point.
I got
Yes,
two.
I got the over.
I got two.
Yep.
Yep.
Because
last week. Do you want me to go over last week's at all quickly? Okay. Just quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So Alabama versus Tennessee. That was a three winner for me. I picked Tennessee to win. Yes. The over. So obviously the cover. You picked the over, but you picked Alabama. So you got the over, but you missed the Alabama. North Carolina State versus Syracuse. I thought North Carolina State was going to win. I just think Syracuse is fraudulent, but whatever. They didn't have Devin Leary. The cover and the under, I got nothing in that game. Well, the under, I got the under. You got Syracuse, you got the cover, and you got the under. But no, you went the over, so you didn't get the over. Okay.
Yeah, no, I thought I did. I covered that.
Oklahoma. We need to. Do we need to start adding your points together? Remember last week we started adding your points, and slowly you started catching up because you didn't do so well. I'm wondering if that's happening again. Okay, Mississippi State versus Kentucky. You picked Kentucky to win. This is one that I kind of want back. I didn't know Will. Well, I was picking because I thought Will Levis was not playing. So, any game this week where someone is questionable, I want to reserve the right until right before the game. Because a team, like for instance, what are you laughing about? The difference between having a first-round quarterback and having a guy that's a freaking sorry-ass quarterback, that makes a difference.
That's true.
Will Levis not playing in that game, and Joe Pedonk, whoever he is, makes, like, for instance, we're going to do Liberty and BYU this week. If Charlie Brewer and Keaton Salter play, Liberty can upset BYU at Liberty.
Correct.
Without them, Liberty loses by 30 points at home because the third-string quarterback, he's supposed to be a great guy, loves Jesus, all that good stuff. Ain't worth a crap. So I mean, you have to, like, for instance, Bryce Young. If Bryce Young does not play against Alabama, I knew Tennessee was going to win. I still was hedging that Tennessee was going to win with Bryce Young. I was right.
You were?
Luckily. I was lucky though. Let's be honest. Bryce Young did everything in the world to win that game.
He did.
But But Jalen, you saw him the week before at home against Texas A&M. He basically almost gave Texas A&M the victory. He was so bad. So don't laugh, because to wait until last second, if Will Levis plays in that game, I'm probably like, oh, Kentucky probably pulls it out at home. So I didn't know he was going to play. I heard he wasn't going to play. So I'm a little sore about that, because I would have changed knowing that. You have to know that information. What are you laughing at?
It's just entertaining for me. It just like
Chris, do you agree? Like, does it matter if like a top end quarterback like Michael Penix? If it's well, actually, Morris is actually not that bad, but still, he's not as good as Penix. But imagine, like, I mean, so many teams out there. You put the backup in. Look, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, he's out this week against UCLA. No, everyone will know they won't win. They're not going to win with Chase Garbers, former Washington Husky. They're not going to win with him. I mean, it's Cam Rising. Imagine him not being in a game. You're not gonna. It goes down. I mean, most teams, you have the second string guy. It's the difference between a win and a loss. So I mean, and in some cases, it really is the difference. What'd you say?
Vegas. Yeah, I was saying Vegas. They're hesitant to touch a game like that when the starting quarterback's going to be out. So and it obviously changes the winning probability significantly when some of those guys go down. Yeah, I could see why you'd be pretty frustrated thinking Kentucky's quarterback wasn't going to play.
Because I saw them play the week before without Will Levis, and that offense was dreadful. It's not that good with Will Levis. They're better on defense. So I'm like, they're not going to beat Mississippi State. Mississippi State's going to be able to score enough points. So I would have taken it off. I didn't realize that right before the game they cleared him, and he ends up playing. And he played okay. He played well enough to win at Kentucky, where Kentucky's pretty good. So I do kind of want that one back, but it is what it is. USC versus Utah, over under. Utah by 3. I picked Utah to win. They didn't cover, obviously. And I picked the under in that game. Wow, shoot. Never picked the under in that game. Syracuse versus Clemson. No. Oh, wait. That's it. So did you add the points back together? Were you adding your points or no?
No,
you might
that's
need to go.
my scores, because what I do actually tomorrow is when I go in, I actually add up my points and I'll message you. I'll look up my points again, just because I'm not gonna try and do it right now.
By the way, if you at any point, and it should go for anyone, if there is a last-second scratch of a key player, we can change our over-unders.
Okay, I mean, I understand about that. I'm actually doing fantasy football for my neighbor, and well, even though I'm a Washington fan, I'm not ashamed to admit I did pick up Dak Prescott as my starting quarterback. So you know what? It is what it is.
But I'm just saying. I mean, if you lose a key player, it's gonna change the game. So, all right, let's get. Do you want to get into this week?
Yeah, let's see. I'm kind of curious about this week, and Chris, if you want to put your picks down too, feel free.
Chris, whatever you want to do. We're doing this competition. Obviously, you're a little behind the 8 ball for about 4 or 5 weeks. But if you want to do the over under and try to get in on the action, or you could just pick an outright winner. We don't really care. Syracuse versus Clemson, over under 49.5. Clemson by 13.5. Why don't you have a go with that, Chris? Who do you have who do you have winning?
I'm going on this. You mentioned Syracuse hasn't played nearly the schedule that warrant them being in my opinion a serious threat. Despite being defeated still. I think Clemson, the 13 points, I'll take that. And give me the over, because I think they're going to just beat the hell out of them. It's at Clemson, but I think this is where the run for Syracuse comes crashing down to reality. DJU's been
Alan, you rock.
I think that.
Well, as much as I like Dino Guardia as a coach, I completely agree with Chris. I'm taking Clemson, I'm taking the over, and I'm picking the cover, because I'd be happy if they won, but I just can't see it at Death Valley against Clemson.
I still don't totally trust Clemson on offense. There's something about the over and the cover. Like Clemson wins this game. I'd be surprised if Clemson doesn't win this game. They have the longest winning streak in college football at home with 35 straight wins. Death Valley is one of the toughest places to win in college football. They win for sure. I'm just struggling a little bit with the over and the cover because while Clemson's offense looks better, it still lacks the explosive players on the outside. And DJ's playing better. He's moving the ball well. His intermediate game's much better. Will Shipley's a dynamic player, both in the passing and run game. But Syracuse has a decent defense. Not a good defense, but a decent one. And okay, you know what? I'm going to go with the under, and I'm going to go with Clemson to cover. Because they are better, and it is at Death Valley. And Syracuse on offense is okay, but Clemson has one of the better, especially defensive lines of college football. I'm going to go like I'm thinking of 31-14, 31-17, which covers. So I go covering the under with Clemson.
One about this game that I was taking a look at, I think this is going to be Clemson's first noon game too. So I'm wondering to see how they react to that because normally they've been playing night games. This is going to be like their first real day game.
Good point. Game number 2, my alma mater, Allen's alma mater, the Christian Bowl, God's teams, BYU versus Liberty. Who wins in Lynchburg? By the way, it's sold out. I mean, I live here in Lynchburg. It's sold out. All the hotels in the area are sold out. I looked into getting a ticket. I don't really love going to games anymore, and it was sold out. So it is over under 58. BYU by 6.5. Huge caveat. Keaton Salter, Charlie Brewer, both were out last week. Are they back? I am going to go here first. This is tough for me. I'm going to predict that they somehow. I'm going to predict this, but I'm going to change my mind if this is not the case. I'm predicting that Charlie Brewer comes back. It will be rocking in Williams Stadium. And I'm going to trust my alma mater here. I think they're going to beat BYU. I'm going a little bit with a heart pick here, but I'm going to go the over. They both have good offenses. They do not. Liberty's defense is actually not that bad. BYU has a terrible defense, but they're stepping up and playing BYU. And BYU does have some pretty good dynamic players. Puka Nacua, Gunnar Romney, Jaron Hall is an elite quarterback. But I'm going to tell you, it's going to be rocking in Williams Stadium.
Oh yeah.
And I've already been watching them this week. This is their Super Bowl. They're playing the two teams that Liberty University always wanted to play: Brigham Young and Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
The Mormons or the Catholics. It's the evangelical. That I'm telling you, I went there. And they're gonna come out and play. And if they have Charlie Brewer, I think they can get it done. But if they don't, they just don't have the firepower. But I'm gonna pick the upset here. I think Liberty beats them. I think it's gonna be like a 42-38 kind of game, like really high scoring. So I'm gonna go with the over. But that's completely dependent on one of those quarterbacks being available. Either one, go, give it a go.
Go ahead, Chris.
Okay, yeah, I'll play that. You know, Charlie Brewer, the Baylor Charlie Brewer that we saw a few years ago plays. Yeah, this seems like, you know, trap written all over it. Kind of like when BYU went across the country to play at Coastal 2 years ago in the COVID season. You know, going into the small stadiums where the whole town is packed in there, it's like a hornet's nest. The roof's ready to come off the building. I'm with you on this. If Brewer plays, I can see it going down into a shootout, and Liberty would pull it out. Give me the over.
All right. Well, for me, I'm going to go out on a limb here. Are you ready for this? Regardless of if Brewer plays or not, I'm going to pick Flames to win. I'm going to pick them to go over. And I'm going to pick them to get the points just because I think that if Brewer does play, they'll definitely win. If he doesn't, I think it's going to be a close game, but I still think they can pull it out because even though I haven't won games all the time, and like I was looking at the stats for the web game when they came back. So, I mean, this team, even when they're not their best, they've been pulling out a lot of the tough wins. I mean, they became bowl eligible last week. That's right there.
With Bennett last week against Gardner Webb, who's a terrible FCS team, they won by 1 point.
Correct.
They can't. They won't have the people. They can't do it. But I'm telling you, with a Brewer or Salter, I just don't think Salter is going to be back. These guys were power. I mean, Salter was a blue chip guy for Tennessee. Brewer was a couple year starter at. I mean, these are good quarterbacks. So, yeah, they can win at home with those two. I just bet it. I don't know how they can get enough offense. They can't score enough because they're going to have to score because they're going to have trouble stopping Nakua, Romney, Hall. They're just gonna. I mean, so they have to outscore them. So, game number 3. Okay, so we go from my alma mater to my favorite team. Why Oregon's my favorite? Actually, why Oregon's my favorite team is because I lived in Los Angeles, California, and I hated UCLA and USC. So I'm like, I need to root for whoever can beat them, and it was Oregon. That's during the Chip Kelly days. So, Oregon versus the aforementioned UCLA Bruins it's UCLA at Oregon. The over-under is 71. Oregon by 6. I'll let you go, Alan.
So you said DTR isn't going to play? You say he's out, the quarterback for UCLA?
No, I was being like hyperbolic. Okay. I said if DTR. Okay, no, actually, no, he's not playing.
Well, if he's going to play, I'm going to pick UCLA, the over, and they'll cover. I think they're going to upset Oregon at Oregon. I'm going to call
You know that Oregon has not lost at Oregon since 2000.
Exactly.
They haven't lost as a favorite since 2016.
Everyone can lose at some point. We saw that last week at Alabama, Tennessee. I mean, come on.
That was at Tennessee.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was the first time they won there.
I told you they're going to lose.
You were right. But I mean, I was watching 3 of the records that went down, and the biggest one was it was their first win there since 2005. So if Alabama can lose to Tennessee at home for the first time since 2005, Oregon can lose at home for the first time since 2016.
Not 18. 16 as a favorite. Okay, Chris, you go on this one.
Yeah, so DTR has been a man on a mission. I have my thoughts on a guy starting for 5 years in college. That's not what the college game is really set up for, but he's definitely making the most of his opportunity with this fifth. Chip Kelly offense is pretty much, he can run it in his sleep. DTR in UCLA, I've bet against them the last 2 weeks against Washington and Utah, which I thought were better teams than UCLA, but both times he's come out and just eviscerated the defenses. So I think that this is Chip Kelly's best shot to get back at his former Oregon team, and I'm picking him to win.
You guys are crazy. Oregon is not losing at home. They're not losing at home, because UCLA does not have, like, Oregon is extremely tough. Last several years, I've always heard that they're going to get upset here at home and they're going to lose to this team at home, and it never happens. At home, they are now on the road. They've been extremely inconsistent since my fandom. And I don't know. Sometimes you just know what you're going to get on the road. Even when they win, I did get some pretty pathetic performances. But at home, for the most part, Oregon has somehow beaten better. I mean, they beat the Washington team in 2018. That Washington team was way better. That was the Pac-12 champion. They were better. They had better people. But Oregon won at home because that's a really, really tough place to play. Autzen Stadium, they have the third longest winning streak in college football. It is arguably one of the top 5 toughest places. I said Death Valley and Clemson. I would put Autzen because it's just a loud, ruckusy. It's a tough place to play. They're going to win. Oregon's going to win the game, and they're going to cover. And I think it's going to be a competitive game, but UCLA's been good at home. At home. But DTR has never played well on the road during his career. Kind of like people say about Bo Nix. Bo Nix is, yes, throughout his career, Bo Nix bad games are always on the road. DTR the same way. He's always been very inconsistent on the road. He's been great this year, but he's only had one road game the whole entire year, and that was against Colorado, who's absolutely horrible. Oregon wins, Oregon covers, and I'm going to go with the over. But I do kind of want a caveat on this point. It's supposed to be horrible weather in Eugene on Saturday. To go over at 71 if the weather's horrible, that's a little risky. But I'm going to go over, but if that weather turns out to be as bad as being predicting, I might move it to an under because I don't know. It's tough to go over when the weather's crap. And then that could actually favor UCLA because then you just never know in a bad weather game. It can take a lot of different elements out. But as long as the weather's slightly okay, Oregon wins, Oregon covers. Next game, Mississippi versus...
I trust Charbonnet, I think, could be the X factor if the weather really extends.
Yeah, I actually would kind of agree. Charbonnet is a big... good. He's a big good running back, so that's always positive to have. But Oregon does have a very good offensive line, and good offensive lines do pretty well in bad weather. Mississippi versus LSU, over under 68. LSU by 2. This is at LSU. Because I'm supposed to go first, I guess, because I was last. I'm just hearing myself talk too much. LSU looked pretty good last week. And while Mississippi is undefeated, I don't know if I've been unbelievably impressed by them. They're a good team, and Lane Kiffin's a good coach, and they have a good running game. But Dart's been a little inconsistent. They could have lost that Kentucky game. Kentucky turned the ball over in the red zone. All they had to do was hold on to it, and at least it would have been tied going into overtime, if not to winning. I'm going to go LSU here. They lost in the swamp. Sorry, not swamp. They lost in Baton Rouge 2 weeks ago to Tennessee. They played a horrible game, and Tennessee's really good. Mississippi's not as good. LSU looked a lot better last week against Florida. I'm gonna pick LSU here. I think they win. I think they cover. I'm gonna go the under though. I think it's gonna be more of like a 34-28 kind of victory. So I'm gonna go the under. I think 68 is a little high, and I'm gonna go with the LSU victory. Chris?
Yeah, I think LSU's rounding into form. Jaden Daniels looks like he's meshing well with what Brian Kelly's trying. I'm with you on Ole Miss. I don't know if I really buy that undefeated record. So the fact that it's in Death Valley, the other Death Valley, I'm going to go LSU, and I'm going to go with the over as well. I think both these teams are going to put up a lot of points, but I think the Tigers got it.
All right. The one thing I missed was what was the spread on it? 2 points. 2 points.
Can't see with my blurry screen. Yeah, 2.
All right. Well, for me, in the words of the great Lee Corso, not so fast. I'm going to go with Ole Miss over, and I think it's going to be a cover just because even though my record isn't that good for undefeated teams when we've done the challenge, Tyler, because we had that for BYU, we had that for Kansas. So I'm gonna hope my luck changes for this one. Just the Ole Miss is gonna win. For some reason, I'm going to go on that gut this time and see what happens.
When did you pick BYU? Who was that over?
It was BYU over Notre Dame. Actually, yeah, because I picked BYU over Notre Dame.
So you're going, okay, gotcha. Next one, Texas versus Oklahoma State. Over under 61. That's not really that high, to be honest with you. Texas by 6.5 at Oklahoma State. Okay. You know where I'm leaning. I think I give away where I'm leaning. I'm surprised that. Let's go back to you, Alan.
Okay. Well, I was very disappointed at last week's game because I really thought Oklahoma State was going to be able to do better against TCU. And I was watching the end of that game, and when I watched it go into double overtime, and I saw them kick that field goal, my daughter was with me, and I was like, "Yeah, they just lost the game." She's like, "Come on, Dad, you can't be right about that." What happened 3 plays later? The TCU quarterback ran it in and closed out the game. I don't think that that's going to happen this time, though. I think Oklahoma State, I think they are going to come back. I think that it's going to be the over. I think that they can beat Tennessee in with the 6.5. I mean, I'm glad Quinn Ewers is back, but I want to see if he can build on the game that he had last week. I'm just wondering if Oklahoma State is going to be able to stop Bijan Robinson. That's going to be, I think, the X factor in the game.
So you're taking to clarify, you're taking Oklahoma State and the over?
Yes.
Gotcha. All right, Chris.
Yeah, I'm not really sure why Texas is favored by that much in this game, especially if it's in Stillwater. So give me the Cowboys and the over. I think there's a lot more points than that. And yeah, I'm not really buying the Texas hype. I don't care who's playing quarterback. So I think that was just a tough spot for Oklahoma State. You know, TCU is a really good team, so I think those are far and away better teams than Texas are at this point.
Yeah, more than anything, Texas. So you always hear that Texas is back, and they're trying to push it again. And I know advanced analytics has been a pretty good place, but they should have lost Iowa State last week. The Hutchinson, the wide receiver for Iowa State, who had a phenomenal game, literally dropped a gimme touchdown. He literally dropped it. It was the most outrageous thing I'd seen. This is a terrific guy who's going to play on Sundays, and Iowa State wins. They win that game. So I don't, and they're going to Oklahoma State now. Oklahoma State did lose a tough game last week. Will they come down off that? You know, you sometimes you can let an opponent beat you twice. I don't know why Texas is 6.5 point favorite. The Vegas really likes them. Advanced Analytics really likes them. But they're still Texas. They lost to Texas Tech this year. I'm gonna go Oklahoma State here, and I'm gonna go man. You guys both went over, didn't you?
You guys join the club?
Yeah. Why could I just see an uglier game and Oklahoma State wins? No, I'm gonna go the over. Yeah, I'll go the over. Next game, Kansas. This is the last. No, it's not the last game. Second last game. Mississippi State versus Alabama. Over under 60.5. This is interesting. Over under 60.5. Alabama by 21. So that would predict Alabama. I'm trying to do the math off my head. 41 to 9, basically 41 to 19. Has Alabama's defense looked that good this year? Didn't Jalen Hyatt just have 5 touchdowns on them on fly patterns? I mean, and Mike Leach it is at Alabama. Obviously, you're always going to play better defense at home. But I don't see the under here. I don't see the under here. I think Alabama wins, but I see this being more of like a 42-31 type win. So I'm definitely going over here. And I'm definitely having Mississippi State covering. To be honest with you, you take the Alabama, well, they don't have anything on the helmet, but you take the numbers off the side. You take the name Alabama off them and you just watch them this year. I'll be honest with you, I don't think they're as good as they've been. I can't explain it. They could have lost to Texas if Quinn Ewers hadn't gotten hurt. They probably lose to Texas. Texas A&M had the ball first and goal at the 1 yard line, and they win the game. And then Tennessee just beat them. And honestly, Tennessee tried to give them the ball away. They literally fumbled the ball and got picked up for a scoop and score in the fourth quarter. I don't think Alabama's that good. Their wide receiver group really does not get great separation. Their offensive line is not what it has normally been. Their cornerbacks are not great. Every time they've played against elite wide receivers, they have gotten by them. I don't think this Alabama team, unless it changes, makes the playoffs. It's so odd to say because on paper, this is one of the best teams I've ever seen. I picked them to play in the national title, but I don't think they're that. I just have seen them this year, and I don't think they're that good for who they have, the roster they have. I don't think this is an amazing team. So that's my choice. Alan, I'll go to you.
All right. Well, first thing before I make my pick, thoughts and prayers to Mississippi State for the player that died today that we just found out about. So first of all, before the picks, I mean, football is one thing. And dies. That how the SEC and Mississippi State have all expressed their condolences, thoughts, and prayers. I want to make sure that we do that here because, sure, we love football, but there's more to life than football. That being said, I'm still going to pick Alabama. I will pick the over, and I'll say that they're going to cover. Just because even though I think Mississippi State, it's going to be a very emotional game for them. But I don't think that that's going to be enough because even though, Tyler, you did say about how certain things for Alabama this year, they're not as good, yes, but I still think they're going to find a way to score, make plays, and take care of business again and start another streak. I'm just waiting to see how it goes. It may not be ugly. I may only get 1 point out of this game, but you know what? I'm willing to take that risk. What do you think, Chris?
Man, so I know this has not looked like your typical Alabama squad, but you're saying they're going to look mortal coming off a loss, and that just happened under Nick Saban. I don't know what the statistics are for one of their SEC losses, which are so rare, but thinking Mississippi State's going to move the ball and put up points, even against this Alabama defense, I'll believe it when I see it. You think back to when Mike Leach's air raid went up against Washington and just got stymied every single year. I think Alabama only got the horses that Washington probably had. So I don't think that Mississippi State's going to have any kind of success, getting this game close. So I'm going with Alabama, the over. I think they're going to cover, beat the living hell out of Mississippi State. But I will say this, Alabama, they should have multiple losses at this point. I think they're going to take another loss in this SEC regular season. They're sloppy. They're committing a ton of penalties, and they just look totally beatable, on defense, especially on the road. So I think it's coming. I just don't think it's going to be against the Bulldogs.
That's fair.
The next game, and I find it, I'm just going to make an observation. I notice when I pick first, Alan, you always go the opposite of me. I can guarantee you that so it's funny because I let you go, and then I'm like, well, I'm going to go with what I think. I'm not just go. I can just tell when I go one way, you're going to go total opposite. So I'm wondering what you're going to go do on this one. Kansas State versus TCU. Over under 54. TCU by 3.5 at home. Chris, what do you got on that one?
Man, under in this, and I think this this is danger zone for Texas Christian, because this is what Kansas State does. They charge up like the death, they're going to blow up the Death Star. They ruined so many Big 12 team seasons. Usually it's Oklahoma, but they've already accomplished that feat. So I think that they are going to be everything TCU wants and more. I got Kansas State winning this. Give me the under. TCU's dream season comes crashing down. Another victim to the Wildcats. And their coach at K-State has not lost to TCU since he's been there.
Go ahead, Tyler. But one thing I want to clarify for you: every time you say a game, what I do is I use my phone and I write down my odds before you say anything. It just turns out that we decide to go on opposite sides.
Sure you do. Okay, did you go ahead? It's you. It's on you, man. You're next.
Well, I believe that K-State's going to go. They're going to win. I think they're going to have the over. So I'm going to call the upset, and I think that they would cover. But I think that it's going to be a great game. I think it's going to be one of the top games in the Big 12 this year, just because the Red River rivalry, while that was an okay game, it was a blowout. And so Oklahoma State and how they just played TCU, that was one of the best games of the year for them. And then you saw how TCU and Kansas, that was another great game. So you're getting a pattern where wherever TCU plays, one of the best games of the year. So seeing how Sonny Dykes is as a coach, I think between him and Kine, it's going to be a matchup that is probably going to, I'll call it right now, I'd say that it's going to be the winner of the Big 12 is going to come out of this game.
So, okay. I do not love TCU in this spot. I don't love a team that had a kind of a last-minute victory over Kansas, followed by a last-minute victory over Oklahoma State. It's just you're really up on these highs, coming back, winning, and then all of a sudden you have to do it again against a team that just kind of wins ugly, plays very fundamentally sound football, that slows the game down. I don't love this spot. But you know what? I don't love picking road teams. That's why I'm a little shocked by some of your guys' picks. Because at the end of the day, home does matter in college football. It is tough for kids to beat other kids on their home field. It's your home crowd, it's where you live. I remembered it myself from playing. When you played at home, there was something about like, I'm here with my people, you hear your crowd, you're just super amped. There's something different about it on the road. You're lonely. It feels lonely out there. You don't have it when you do something great. It's crickets. No one's yelling. It's weird. And so I understand it as a guy who played what it feels like. But I don't, saying all that, I just don't, I'm kind of where you guys are at. I don't love TCU coming off of back-to-back last-minute victories for the third straight week playing a team like Kansas State that's just tough to beat in this kind of spot. Oh my gosh. I really don't know. This is a pick 'em. Okay. Oh man, 3.5 too. I'm gonna go with TCU. I can't do that long soliloquy about home. I think they somehow pull out a third victory at home. They somehow pull it out. Let's 31-28. So they don't cover. So I don't have them covering. I would go with the over. That 54 is a crazy under. Kansas State plays some pretty good D though. But I think they pull it out. I think they pull it out at home. I think the home crowd gets them over the hump. Who's TCU playing the next week? I don't like them in that spot. If they play anyone that has a pulse.
I think they still got Texas and Oklahoma in front of them down the stretch.
Let's see, TCU football. The next week they play West Virginia at West Virginia. That's a game they could lose. Totally. Yep. I mean, is West Virginia that good? No, but West Virginia's not bad. They're an average team. Yeah. I'm on the record. I'll say they lose to West Virginia. That's totally a spot where they can lose. I think they pull it out at home. It's tough to win. That's what I'm telling you guys. You guys are crazy with that Oregon pick. I'm gonna have to be hitting you up on Twitter.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I got a question for you.
Oh, tough around. Yep.
Okay, so when you were playing football at Liberty, were you part of the 1-10 team?
I was.
Okay. When you're talking about how you were just talking about for being for the home game, I was there with the band. I was at every home game. And watching how they are now compared to how it was back then, it's a lot different. But the thing is, even when we had a lot of people there, when the team wasn't performing, that was tough to watch because I will never forget this, and you'll understand when I say this. Scott Kiowski was a nice kid, but having him kick a field goal, we were screwed.
He was there the year before me. So mine was Ben Beasley, and he was the same. We were screwed with him. Yeah. It was hard to – they had so many kickers in a row they couldn't hit a basic field goal.
That was why about –
And even my senior year, they still couldn't. Even we came back and we were 7-4 my senior year. So Chris Gillian, my coach got fired. So I went to JUCO, then I went to Liberty. My coach got fired after my junior year because we were terrible, 1-10. We lost like 5 games by like last second field goals. Literally, it was crazy. And then the next year, my senior year, we were 7-4. And then Liberty won I think they won 3 Big South championships after that. And then when did they go to FBS? When they just got a lot of donor money?
I want to say it was the year after McCall got there, because when he got there, he helped transition him up. Ian McCall, the athletic director.
Yeah.
He left Baylor and came here.
And brought Freeze in.
Yes.
Freeze was only at the F. Did they have Gill for a year at the FBS? Yeah, they had Turner Gill for 1 year at the FBS.
Yeah, Turner Gill. But the thing about your team that was 1-10, the team that you guys beat when it was 1-10, I believe it was Kentucky Wesleyan, and they were a Division II team. We didn't even beat a Division I team that year. It was a Division II team we won against and lost the rest of the games.
It was pretty bad. Yeah, it was sad. Good times though.
It definitely was. Well,
so I would have to calculate how far off are we on these predictions this week. It didn't seem like there was a great discrepancy. I think you guys are a little more in line. Like if it's either going to be you guys doing better or me, because I know you picked the same in the Oregon game. Let's see, Syracuse versus Clemson. Were we all aligned on that one? We all well, I did under. You guys were aligned. BYU versus Liberty, we were all aligned. I think we're across the board. As long as Brewer plays, or Salter. Oh yeah, that's right. You're gonna do it no matter what. You're gonna lose
no matter what. That, and remember,
you're gonna lose if you don't play.
Hey, you know what? It won't be the first time I've lost. It won't be the last time either. But
UCLA versus UCLA at Oregon, you're all gonna lose. You guys are on board on that one. Mississippi versus LSU. Me and Chris were on the same side. Allen was different on that one. Texas versus Oklahoma State. Did anyone pick Texas? No, it was all Oklahoma State, wasn't it? Yep. And was it all overs?
I believe so.
Yep. And then Mississippi State versus Alabama. You guys both have Alabama blowing them out. I have Mississippi State covering. And then Kansas State versus TCU. You guys both pick. And the thing is, my heart is actually kind of with what you guys. I kind of feel like this is a bad spot for TCU, but it's at home. Home sweet home.
Well, think about it though. Kansas lost to TCU at home. And, I mean, that was the biggest game of the year for them at the time. Go ahead, Chris. What do you got?
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
was just saying, Tyler mentioned what the home crowd is worth. Vegas sees it the same way. 3.5 points. I think 3 points is the standard for the home team if they see the team's equal match. So, to your credit, Vegas agrees with you on that, Tyler.
It's hard. And some stadium, like Oregon Stadium, that is just, some stadiums are really hard. It's really loud. It's really like Clemson, Death Valley. The Swamp used to be. I mean, Florida loses all the time now at home, but when they're good, that's a tough place to play. There's just some stadiums that are really loud. And Washington, when Washington's good, Washington's extremely difficult. Even this year, Washington, what are they, 5-0 at home? They're a different team on the road, though.
Yeah, they haven't won at the Rose Bowl very often, ever, as playing a road game.
Yeah.
They haven't won in Tempe since 2001. I'm shocked it happened this year again because ASU is terrible, but
yeah,
good God, it's like the building's cursed.
That was a curse too, because how they lost. Penix hitting his lineman in the back of the head, the ball pops up and they get it and run it back. I'm sorry, that was funny. Did you see that? He throws the ball, hits the back of his lineman's head, pops up in the air, and the guy picks it back.
I was running the Moab 240 and didn't see a single minute, but when I finally got cell phone reception and saw that we lost to ASU, I was like, well, it was in Tempe. I didn't know it was some comedy error that lost us the game, but I'm not surprised. Like I said, the building's cursed.
That reminds me, Tyler, when I was looking at, I remember for our picks last week, what happened to Penn State?
Oh yeah, I didn't bring that one up.
What happened?
Michigan wins, but Penn State covers in the under. So I had Michigan winning. I switched to Penn State. Yeah, I did. That was on me. Because I had initially, when we did the episode, I had Michigan winning, Michigan covering, and the under. And I started hearing analysts. I was listening to several podcasts, and they convinced me that Penn State had a good matchup against Michigan. I'm like, Penn State covers. I don't think they win, but they cover. Got blown out. Could not stop Michigan on offense. Couldn't do anything offensively. Sean Clifford made some plays with his legs, but Penn State's honestly. You did mention James Franklin. I don't think he's not going to get fired. So he won't. But I'm not. For the amount of talent, the roster talent that they have, they have not played up to that the last couple of years. And this was an epitome of that. This was. You saw this on display again, where they should be playing Michigan competitively. I mean, it should be a touchdown win or whatever, and not getting just literally blown off the field. It wasn't close at all. They dominated from the opening snap. It was a really, really good victory by Michigan. Penn State's just not very good.
Yeah, they better be careful this week too. They're playing a team that's got a really good running back in Ibrahim at Minnesota, so they better bounce back quick, or else this thing can spiral.
Oh yeah, they play Minnesota, don't they? Minnesota's looked tough though too. I mean, they got beaten pretty good by Illinois, and I think Tanner Morgan's out, isn't he? He got hurt last week, I know.
Okay, yeah, that changes things. But like I said, they still gave up a ton of yards to Blake Corum. This guy at Minnesota really gashed him.
Yeah, Muhammad Ibrahim, he's a pretty good running back. So, yeah, Penn State's a team. I'm curious to how they bounce back. And they also have the trap game because Ohio State comes there next week.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason, Penn State actually does always play Ohio State pretty competitively. Even when they're not very good, they actually play them pretty good.
Yeah, it's gonna be a whiteout game.
Oh yeah, they'll come. They'll play their best version of football. They'll probably play them better than they do Michigan. They don't play Michigan very well. I don't know what that's all about. Because they're actually more in line. They're equivalent more in talent to Michigan. That's what you would think is a more competitive game. But for some reason, they don't play them well, especially at Michigan. They haven't been competitive there in years.
Yeah, well, that and the other thing, when we talked last week, I told you Blake Corum was probably going to have a big game, and then Edwards turned out to have a big game as well because McCarthy, he didn't even throw a touchdown pass the whole game. He had an interception because he only threw for, I think, 49 yards.
Honestly, McCarthy, they could be starting McNamara and they'd be the same. I think the pressure because McCarthy was a former 5-star, I don't think he's anything special. He's a pretty inconsistent quarterback. Doesn't really pass. He's pretty off. He's not very accurate passer. I don't think he's anything special. If they had a better quarterback, they'd even be better, to be honest with you. Good defense, great run game, good offensive line, good coaching staff.
For the most part, yes. Well, I'll say that. But I mean, being an Ohio State fan, I mean, I have to hope that the coaching staff doesn't do as well. That being said, though, I mean, we're going to beat Iowa. That's not even a question this week. Well, actually, let me rephrase that. It's going to be a good game because it's at Iowa, but I think the last time we went there, we lost. I think this year, though, it's going to be a different story. What do you think, Chris?
I mean, you guys have just blown through everybody, which is what I expected. Until you get to the one at the end of the year, I think that this is just those two teams in the Big Ten are just head and shoulders above the rest of certainly above the talent level. But yeah, I don't think they're going to get tested by Iowa.
I'd say that's fair, although I'm wondering for one of the Big Ten wildcards this year, Maryland, because you saw Talia Tagovailoa got hurt last week for his knee. The question is if he's going to be okay the rest of the year, because if he's not, I wonder how Maryland's going to do the rest of the year because I don't trust their backup. Because, I mean, the backup came in, he did okay, but Talia's been the one who's been the starter the whole year, and he's been the one to make the plays. So I heard that the knee wasn't as bad, but even still for Maryland, I think that he's going to be the difference between them becoming bowl eligible or just trying to get to that point.
Maryland's Maryland.
Still better than Nebraska.
What?
They're still better than Nebraska, and
my dying dog is better than Nebraska. I mean, when's Nebraska? When did they last have a winning season? I think it was like 5 years ago. I mean, I grew up a Nebraska fan, and I love the Cornhuskers, but they're not any good right now.
Oh yeah, Chris, you were on the college football preview show when I looked at both you guys, and I said that Scott Frost was going to be fired a few games into the year.
You did say that, and you keep on bringing it up. Are you gonna bring that up for like every episode? It's gonna be like, remember when I said about Scott Frost? What'd you say?
Okay.
No, that was spot on. He got fired a lot earlier than I thought he would.
But deserve it. But deserve. Who do you think gets the Nebraska job? If you had to guess.
Lance Leopold, however you say it.
You think that's who it is? I'm going to lead Matt Rule. I could see him. I could see him taking the Nebraska job and being a good fit there.
Dude, he won it. He won at Baylor post Art Briles, so that's a great candidate as well.
I'm trying to think of someone who's a good program builder. Lance Leipold, good pick. Matt Campbell. I think Matt Campbell would be competitive there. And then Matt Rule. So I'm just interested. I'm just waiting for the day. When's Auburn going to fire Brian Harsin?
That's probably the next coach to get fired.
I would think it's him or Scott Satterfield for Louisville. You have to think he's pretty much on the hot seat. I'm trying to think of someone else. Well, you said James Franklin. He's not going to get fired this year.
Anything is possible, but you know what? I'm going to give you a different coach for Nebraska that's going to make you laugh, but it still could be possible. Manny Diaz.
Okay. It's not possible.
Anything is possible, sir.
Oh, yeah, I could say that, like, Bill Belichick's going to be the next coach. I mean, like, you can just name some. You know what's possible? Elmer Fudd. It's possible. Manny Diaz didn't win at Miami, and he was the favored son. I mean, literally got the job because he was born in Miami. It could make it there. And do you think Nebraska's going to go and hire him?
Weirder things have happened. Literally.
That'd be a terror. Their fan base would riot. Remember when Tennessee tried to hire Greg Schiano, which actually wouldn't have been a bad hire, by the way. And their fan base literally went berserk. Like, literally, they will be hitting the streets, looting. They will be going BLM riots. Sorry. Was that the right thing to say? No, they'll be like literally burning down cities in Nebraska if they hire him. I mean, sorry, that's not happening.
Well, it probably isn't, and I understand that, but it's more just trying to see who is going to become a coach. Only because he has had some experience, he could be a candidate somewhere. I'm not saying that he would get that, but if someplace really wants a coach like that,
oh, he could. No, I definitely think he'll be a candidate somewhere, but not in Nebraska.
okay, fair enough. Well,
they're gonna try to hire some. I mean, it's Nebraska. It's still a storied program. They have a ton of money. They're doing pretty well in NLI. It's in the Big Ten. The Big Ten is undeniably going to become this maybe the most powerful, most money in college football with the TV deals and UCLA and USC coming over. So they're going to be able to get if they do it right, and especially because they got a head start on this, they get 3 months to do it. They should be able to land a pretty solid coach. I'd be shocked if they don't like. Manny Diaz is that's a terrible hire.
okay.
Manny Diaz might be a fine hire for Temple.
Possibly.
He might be a fine hire for North Texas.
Not
for a Big Ten school.
Okay, fair enough. It was just a name, but Chris, I know you got to head out. Where can we
come up
see
with better names?
For if we want to try to find you on Twitter or other forms of social media, where would we find you, sir?
At Nullcore, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff. SomanSports.com for the radio show every Saturday nights, 9 to 12 Central Time. Thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Chris.
We'll get you another time, all right, bud?
Pleasure as always.
Absolutely.
Go Ducks.
Go Dogs.
We'll see. Tyler, I wouldn't think Manny Diaz will be a coach in the Big Ten, but I have seen. I remember Frank Solich was a coach at Nebraska.
Okay.
So I mean,
Frank Solich also was their offensive coordinator for a long time.
Under Tom Osborne, yes.
He won several national titles at Nebraska as an offensive coordinator. He wasn't a failed head coach.
Okay, I got one for you from the SEC. You ready?
Oh my gosh! No, I don't think I'm ready.
You'll be okay.
I'm scared.
Arkansas. Bobby Petrino had to when he got ago, they promoted John L. Smith to be the coach. And that team with Ryan Mallett, that was the year they thought that they were going to win the national championship. Instead, they ended up 6-6. Do you know where John L. Smith coached before he was at Arkansas?
I think it was Michigan State.
Yes, sir.
Yep. Yeah, and once again, they were stuck in a bad position because Pitino suddenly got fired. Arkansas was good. I remember Petrino could coach. Unfortunately, he lost his magic by Louisville because I think he had trouble recruiting people because of what had happened, and now he's used goods. But Petrino could coach before he had all the controversial stuff. He was a pretty good coach.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I want to run something by you that I heard this week that I don't believe, but I want to get your input on it. I heard. Did you hear the rumor about Saban saying this was his last year?
No, I didn't. You know what? I'm not gonna lie. He's coaching a little. I didn't hear that, but there is something off about this Alabama team. I'm telling you, I'm not like. But before, when people were like Alabama's not that good just because he didn't look good in a game or something, or they had an upset loss. They look great the whole year. But this year, they honestly, am I wrong?
No,
they don't look that good. They look different. They're averaging 15 penalties a game. Their defensive backfield's a mess. Their offense is jaggedy. Their offensive line's very inconsistent. I'm like, they're not. So yeah, when you say that rumor, I'm like, is he kind of done? Is he because he's won how many 7 national titles?
Mm-hmm.
6 with Alabama. I mean, what more does he have to do? It seems like why wouldn't he retire? And they don't look. They look weird. It's
because the article. What they were saying on the article was, besides the recruits, just how the NLI is, how the players have come in, how even though they could get pro money, it's them also already getting money because of NLI, so it's not as big of a focus per se, is one of the things that the article said, which, I mean, I can't really argue.
Now I look at his recruiting class. He is the number 1 recruiting class again. So he's definitely not. He's not slowing down when it comes to recruiting. But yeah, I mean, but yeah, I mean, yeah, I believe you.
I mean, 19 penalties against Tennessee. That was the most ever by a Saban coach team at Alabama. I think though he's had. This year, there was, I think, either 15 or 17 to Texas A&M as well. That's 2 games with the most penalties he's ever had in a game at Alabama.
Texas.
Okay, Texas. Because, it was they had that stat on CBS when I was watching the game, and that's something you would never think would happen in the years past.
Yeah, they just don't look. And then they had a player. Didn't they have a guy that also punched a fan?
Yeah.
It's just weird. It's weird year. I don't know. I don't know if Alabama's that good right now.
I'm waiting to see how that goes.
Weird year for Alabama. Like otherwise, I think the status quo are pretty good, right? Ohio State's good, Georgia's good, Clemson's good. The only one that's just throwing it off a little bit is Alabama. I'm like, they just are not that good. Like, there's no way I'd pick Alabama to beat Georgia and Ohio State. I don't trust Clemson. I don't trust them. I'd be pretty surprised if Clemson won it right now. But
how do you feel about Alabama going down to dropping only to number 6? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, that's what I had them in my top 10.
Okay. Speaking of top 10, I just saw that the AP posted about the college basketball season getting ready to start, and I saw that we had the AP top 25, but real quick, I just want to hit on the top 10. It's got North Carolina's number 1, Gonzaga 2, Houston is number 3, Kentucky is number 4, Kansas is number 5, the defending champion. technically they had them tied at 5. Duke is number 7. UCLA is number 8. Creighton's number 9. And Arkansas rounds out the top 10. That, I would assume, is going to be pretty strong top 10 for basketball. We're just going to have to wait and see, just because I saw last Wednesday Kentucky hosted their Midnight Madness for the basketball season. So we're getting ready to have those games as well, although I thought of something for us coming up for bowl season. What do you think about trying to predict every bowl game this year?
Like the little crappy bowls. The only thing is with the bowl games, players sit out. The problem is with modern bowl games is players sit out. So it's so hard to predict them, because all of a sudden, if you have like your 4 best players sitting out, I mean, yeah, you can totally lose. That's why, like, I don't take the bowl results very, very seriously anymore. Because when you're missing, I mean, I saw like Oregon last year. I remember when they played, they had like their 4 best players sitting out, and they look like crap. Now, to be granted, a lot of times the team you're playing has this guy sitting out. So, and even like Ohio State, the Rose Bowl last year was really good, and Ohio State for Wisconsin was a really good game. But Ohio State had Garrett Wilson sitting out. They had Chris Olave sitting out. So, it's just like, would that have been a good game with those guys in? I don't know. Probably not.
Yeah, because in that game, Smith and Jigba got over 348 yards, I believe, and at least 3 touchdowns. I mean, they could not guard him at all.
No, but imagine if they had Olave and Wilson too.
It wouldn't have been as close of a game in my book, but still, it was still one of the best games of the year for the bowl season.
It was good, and your defense could not stop Utah that game.
Yeah, no, that was why Kerry Coombs, after that year, they let him go in and
I wonder if when is Jackson Smith-Njigba coming back?
I've heard rumors he may come back this week, but I'm not sure. I would wonder if he would come back by Penn State, honestly. Just because if he was back by Penn State, I think it could make a difference. But the problem is for the hamstring, how special and how unique of an injury that is. Because, I mean, he did try to play one other game this year, and I know it's frustrating for him because he really wants to play and because of how great of a player he is, but your health is number one. Just because last year, Alabama, they had, it's either 1 or 2 years ago, I think they had Waddle play. After he had gotten injured, he came back in time for the championship game. I believe it was Jalen Waddle. And so he came back and played in the game instead of just like, oh, I'm just going to hold off on my draft stock. I mean, it worked out for him, but it still was just a risk that I really don't think that year they needed him to take.
Well, that was the year that they were playing for the national title, though.
Yes, correct.
It's hard to not come back because how many times in your life do you have a chance to play for a national title? Like, you're like one of only 2 teams every year. So, that's a little different. Like a bowl, I don't like how they sit out Rose Bowls though. Like, really, you don't get to play Rose Bowl. That's a memory. I hate them sitting out games. That's why, because of all the sitting out. So I, for so long, said I don't really want the expanded playoff. I like the bowls. But the fact that it's become where guys just all sit out and people don't play in bowls, I have changed my tune on that. I'm now, you know what? If people are just going to sit out, we just need to expand the playoff. So now I'm totally for expansion, which it is going to expand, right?
Yeah. That's what they were talking about. I think they said it was going to happen 2 years, something like that.
Yeah, 2025.
Yeah.
And that's around the same time that Oklahoma and Texas heads to the SEC, and UCLA and USC heads to the Pac-12.
Big Ten.
And Big Ten. Sorry, my bad. I got a feeling there's gonna be more movement.
Oh, absolutely.
I think Oregon could leave. I think some teams could leave to the Big 12. So I think there's gonna be more movement.
Oh yeah, it's not over yet, but we're just gonna have to wait and see if.
Not over yet. It's not over yet.
Although, for our picks for this week, I think it's pretty good. So, if we were going to try and find you on social media or try to see the different things you're going to post, how would we do that, sir?
At the Turner Cast. See me on Twitter, trolling people.
I mean, it is what it is. For me, you can find me on allen.west46 on Instagram. I am going to open up my Twitter sometime soon. It's in the process. I mean,
You've been saying that for it's literally like on your phone.
I haven't logged in.
Log in, dude. What are you
I'm
waiting for? Are you waiting for the Red Sea to part?
No, if I was going to do something like that, I'd be waiting for the Commanders to make it to the Super Bowl. So I mean, if we were going to go like that, you know what? If Liberty can pull
You know
it
what? Changing your freaking name, you don't deserve to make the Super Bowl. Like, what the heck did you change your name for?
that's a very frustrating thing, honestly. I mean, I don't like how they did that. And you saw how Snyder had the different issues this week. He actually had to put out a press release he sent to the owners about in regards to that ESPN article. So
I heard something. I haven't looked into it much. But what?
yeah,
And it did. What's the Guardians with the Indians? I'm seeing them in the playoffs. They're not the Indians anymore.
Cleveland Guardians. Yeah, they made him change the name after last year.
Why haven't they changed the Braves name yet?
I mean, I don't know. I guess they're trying to say that because the Tribe is near Atlanta, that's why they're keeping it. But it's been special. That's the best way to put it. I mean, we can hope for better things.
This is just silly, man. Really?
I mean, I miss them being the Redskins. I'm not going to lie. I mean, that's even though it was
the Commanders is the corniest name too. Like, call them something cool, like the.
I mean, that's why a lot of people wanted Red Wolves because of the.
That's dumb too.
Well, no, the Red Wolves was the first black. That was the name of the group. We was the Air Force for World War II. I think that was what it was. The Red Wolves, I think. That was why
they were a who?
They were a black Air Force group for the Americans in World War II.
Yeah, were they? No, I don't know if they're the. Hold on, let me look this up.
Well, that was what they were trying to do. That was one of the other names, and that was why they were trying to have that name. Because I remember there was a movie starring Cuba Gooding Jr. about it.
Yeah, I think they're Tuskegee Airmen.
Yeah.
So they're going to call them the Washington Tuskegees?
No, it's going to be the Washington Red Wolves, I believe. Because, they were Tuskegee Airmen. I guess they were called the Red Wolves as well, so.
Gotcha.
Yeah, no, it was something I remember I did some research on, and a friend of mine, he was hoping for that name because when you look at the commercials for the Commanders, they have 2 words at the beginning of the commercials for you going to the games. Take command. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be taking command of the game unless I get it for free, and even then I'll have to think about it honestly.
That's just a dumb name. Guardians? Oh my gosh.
Well, for Cleveland, I can see that only because they're guarding the Lake Michigan, going to Lake Michigan.
They're Cleveland Indians. The Indians is fine.
Jacobs Field, I'll never forget it. So we'll see how that goes. Either way, they are in the playoffs along with other teams. You saw the Dodgers got eliminated, so we'll see what happens.
I'm part American Indian. I really could care less if people like stupid.
I hear you, sir. Well, either way, we're going to see how the points go, and we'll see how the overall record keeps going. But You can follow us on Twitter at the Sportscast1 and visit us on our website, thesportscast.net. Make sure to check out our show schedule throughout the week. This is Alan
See you
West,
later.
Turner. Have a good night, sir, and we will see you next week.
See you, man.